Okay, hey y'all, DBSAR here. Okay, this is where we're going to start going through the LT1 sample sent from Barry at the Sulfurin factory, and my thoughts onto it and the tests that I've done so far in comparison to the version 2 of the prototype that I built and the version 1, and maybe to some of the other ones, including the Q8 with the diffuser. And there's a whole bunch more lanterns over here. Obviously I've got too many lanterns, but that's a part of the whole hobby, is I modify these things to make them better, because it's hard to find a good one from a factory, and that's the whole reasoning behind why this was designed. Okay, first impressions is actually really good. In regards to the design of it, I really like the finish. The anodizing has a satin finish on the top, so it's not shiny. It looks more professional. I really like the actual center screw in this, because he designed it like a custom-made aluminum screw that's a coin type Phillips and not a regular screwdriver one. Like I use a stainless in this one. This looks much better and much more professionally done. And as for the lantern itself, most everything is pretty good. There's only a few small things I'd like to see changed on this thing. Number one, we'll be starting with the actual switch color. I don't know if you can see it, because I have a very bright background light here right now, so they're both green, same as the Q8. I would prefer this to be either amber or orange, or even a very warm white, like in the 2K range, 22K range, just because of the simulates more of a flame glow, and it doesn't upset your sleep rhythm thing that I forget what they call it, by the way, again. But yeah, that was the intention on that. And I never had a chance to actually change these, because I couldn't find LEDs to fit it small enough, so I just left it as it is, because basically it's just a prototype. But yeah, and I know Toy Keeper's been working on the actual Android software, doing some changes, because it's basically the same as this, except for it includes the tint ramping, which again, it's very similar to, everybody's familiar with the little Zanflare one. This is the last one of the three that I had. The other two, one burned out and one failed when I tried to modify it. And this one I managed to successfully modify with a switch on the side, so it doesn't turn on accidentally, because some of the tests I did, I've had this thing turn on in backpacks just by touching metal object and things like that, plus the parasitic drain, because you can't lock it up by turning it. But we'll get to that shortly after. But first off, we'll go through basically the lantern itself, the LT1 sample. The charging system based off the TP5100, which is a really good charging system. I've tested it so far with several different types of wall plugs, power banks, the actual USB ports built into this RV trailer here, and they all charged it at various amperages and with no problems at all. And always showed red. I also tested it with solar panels. I had 4 of them, but I'm still waiting for a sunny day to actually test the full power of the solar panels. But even on a cloudy day, I actually was very impressed at the fact that the solar panels still trickle charged it. Even the smaller ones did. The bigger ones had no problem reaching the full 1.5 amp capacity. So yeah, the charging system's great, and it cut off at 4.19 volts, which is satisfactory mark. Some people, I believe, would like to have it lower, but at least as long as it stays below the 4.2 volt mark, I'm happy with that. The fact that it has built-in charging is a really good bonus, because I installed it on the original V1 underneath that red cap, which is a TP4056 type, but I never did install it on the V2, because I was using the version 1 as just the charge testing. But since this has a good built-in charging system, it works really good. I don't see any changes in that. The LEDs are not very bright, but you can see them no problem when they're charging in the evening or night, if you're indoors or things like that. No problem whatsoever, so I'm fine with that. Again, the switch color is what I'd like to see change a little bit. As for the actual shape of the lantern, the shaping is great. It's basically based off the design that I sent them. Just the only thing I noticed is that they made the lens and the top slightly larger, slightly taller, slightly larger diameter. I'm not sure what the reason was with that, but I'm okay with that to a point. But I'd like to see it shortened, maybe 7 to 10 millimeters, bring it to the length of this one. I'm not sure how much extra would it work it is to shrink the size of the top, because if they do that, they're going to have to shrink the size of the LED star inside as well, so they have to basically redesign the whole upper section of that. So even if they shorten the lens a little bit, I think it would work really good, because right now it's roughly 7 to 8 millimeters taller than what the version 2 sample is. Really hard to see in the picture, but yeah, other than that, it's a little bigger there, but which I'm fine with. They put a metal bail handle on, which can be removed just by pulling it one side. It pops off, which I'm actually fine with the bail handle. I thought about the idea of actually having drill some more holes in the side, like one going in and then one down to the top, so it's an angle, or up through an angle, to connect paracord along the sides of that. But what I did is I just used a paracord with a locking ball on top and just put it in bail handle, which works fine for that. So I would probably, the focus is going crazy again, but yeah, I'd probably leave it at that, which seems to be fine. So yeah, and it can easily be modified after. I'm not sure the extra cost of adding extra holes, and even adding holes wouldn't be a worry because this is solid aluminum. So by drilling on an angle up through would not create an opening to the inside, so still it would be waterproof. And yeah, so regards to the bail handle, I'm fine with that as well. It seems to work. It's you can only really hold it with 2 fingers, but adding a paracord hanger to it, then yeah, you can actually hang it with your hand, no problem, or hanging on a larger tree stump or something like that, a limb, and so on. So I had the lantern apart. There's O-rings at the top, O-rings at the bottom, and the actual lens is screwed down, plus the bolt on top, so it's actually pretty solid. I banged it around quite a bit. I've knocked it off the table while it was on, and yeah, it doesn't blink. It stands up quite a few, so I got a few dents into it, stuff like that. So I didn't test it underwater because I made a mistake when I unsoldered it to take it apart to do some internal examination. I actually melted the top of the lens a little bit with my soldering iron, so it was a bit of a boo-boo, so I can't really test it now unless I use some glue or something. But judging by the seals, it would have no problem. Like for rain, like it'd be great. The thing's pretty sealed, but the bottom end is the same as the Q8. It's like it's not meant to be used underwater anyway. But as for sitting on a table camping in the rain, it definitely would not leak anything. So they did very good on that, and I really like the battery tube as well. Whereas the original Q8, like I built the version 2 from, had flat spots on the side, which is okay, but I like the smoother, completely rounded tube with the knurling all the way around. And adding the knurling on this design here was something part of what I sent them. So yeah, so other than the aesthetics of the lantern, it's really nice. I can see the base is thicker because it actually has the tripod hole in the bottom, which works great because I already tested on tripods, something like that, on angles. You can actually hang it on screws, things like that. It works great there. I thought about having them add an extra tripod hole on the side, like say 45 degrees around from the charging port to there, but I'm not sure if the metal's thick enough in this, because I never really looked at it, because the original one, or the original Q8, has one on the back. And the reason why I thought about having it on the side is for an upcoming accessory shade that'll go around the back. I didn't bring the actual shade that I made for this one with me for this video, which I'll be doing a video later anyway on the accessory kit, which will include a shade for directional, plus a top shade for when you hang it up, direct light down, and a handle, and also a wide clip-on base that'll make it more stable on, like on rocks, you know, unstable ground, things like that. Yeah, so that's regards to the kit part. So the other thing they need to do is add the BLF logo on the top edge. They can probably put it around here, like they can put, like, say, the BLF LT1 here with the logo that we sent in, and maybe on the other side they can put like Soul Fern, BLF Soul Fern, which are they want one on each side of the top edge, because there's a smooth area around here and here on the other side. They can do it on both sides, and leave the bottom clean and so on right there. Regarding the shade itself, back to the actual frosting, it seems to be a little bit heavy. It's probably roughly the same frosting that I have on this diffuser I have on the Q8. But again, the diffusers are great for indoors. You know, if you just want to light up an area because you're getting a lot of ceiling bounce. But the problem is the fact you don't get any light downward from the bottom. They create a large shadow on the bottom, and if you turn them up high, like really bright, they tend to get really glary on the eyes, because when you're looking down at a table, or if you lay it on the ground somewhere, you're staring at the thing, it just creates a lot of glare on the top. The same issue with regards to ceiling bouncing lights. It's great if when you have a ceiling to bounce the light off, but when you're outdoors, you can't bounce the light off a ceiling. So that's why, you know, you gotta have a diffuser and there's a glare. And I've tried other types of things. I've made them like this. This was the top of a lantern. Now it's on a BLF SD10, the lumen top, which seems to work pretty good. But again, when you lay the thing down, you're getting the glare from, because you're looking at the actual LED, so you're getting eye glare again. And what I did is I painted the inner top white so it reflects more of the light downward, but it still has the issue of a lot of artifacts because the clear lens and the chrome reflector and so on. So again, it has limitations. This is goes back to the reason why I built the lantern as a thing. So yeah, so the shade, it could use a little bit less frosting because I've tested a bunch of different frosting levels on the shades. Like in the version 2, you can't see it on the camera, but when you actually look at it, you can actually see the LEDs through the lens slightly more than what you can through here. It's a good balance of not reducing the actual lumens through from the LEDs through the lens as what this one does, because when I test it with the lens off, I got a major increase in actual lumens in my light sphere with the lens off versus the lens on. So we know that the frosting blocks a lot of the light, so it would be brighter and you'd have more output if the frosting was a little bit reduced, closer to what I call 20%, which is roughly what this is, and the version 1, it's the same thing. So you can actually see the LEDs inside. You probably can't on the camera, but the LEDs are slightly visible, but the frosting is just enough to prevent the glare and is enough to smooth out the actual beam, so there's no hard lighting, no artifacts and so on as you look right here. Because if you turn on lights that has the chrome on the inside, which to me is a bad idea. I've never had a good result in anything with chrome, because it creates so much artifacts off the side. You can't see it on the camera again, but I can see it, and it just creates glare up and down. So I'm eventually going to paint this one. This was just one that I've modified a while ago. It's one of the it's an 18650, and but again, it's a size, it's plastic. But yeah, it's the lens. So I think if they can lower the frosting a little bit, we will actually be pretty good on that. It'll actually allow more light transfusion through versus blocking so much. And the same issue goes for the Zanflare one. It has a very heavy frosting, and I managed to actually get one of these to work with the lens off, and it's much brighter than with the lens off and with the lens on, even though it's not nearly as bright as what this is with all 7 chips enabled, and the runtime is not nearly as close. But yeah, I placed an actual switch on the side because like literally you can turn this thing on just by touching it on metal anywhere. So if it's, you know, something in your backpack that's like a spoon or a pot or some kind of metal utensil, and you can turn on accidentally, and the problem is I never did like this system for turning them off. You get a hold of the button, so I place a switch on the side so I can lock the thing out, because they don't have anodizing in the threads. And these are okay, but you know, they're good, compact, a single battery. I didn't like the fact that they heat the battery up quite a bit in the center, because the LEDs are actually board is actually on the actual battery tube. But I resisted this one back a little bit by a few milliamps so that it doesn't get so hot, and at least I modified with a switch. But you know, plus I had a lanyard so you can hang the thing. So yeah, so it was a good test bed as I was designing improvements to the prototypes for this one. But again, this thing has the features that everything else here lacked. And the fact that most of these lanterns, when you buy them, they come in very cool whites, and you know, very glary, you know, the really badly designed reflectors, bad modes, lack of charging, lack of runtime is a big thing, because a lot of these other lanterns like these things here, this one was originally an LED, but it used to run like D batteries, and on high it was I think we used to get like 1.5 hours, 2 hours runtime, and it would run D batteries down. And I converted it to 18650, and it still ran the batteries down, but then I changed the driver to a 105C and reduced the 7135 chips just to increase the runtime, and I didn't lose much output because it's an area light. It's not like a flashlight where you want more beam throw or things like that. But yeah, so yeah, back to the lantern. Like I said, add the logo to the top, change the LED switch color to yellow or orange or amber or a very warm white. Lower the frosting level of the lens, make it lens, if possible, 7 to 10 millimeters shorter. And I'm not sure if they can make the head smaller so it matches this one, because I can actually put this one in in my pocket easier than that. But even though the size isn't really critical, it's a little bigger, but it's still not bad. But like, I can see shortening it definitely a little bit and reducing the frosting, because it seems to block a little thing. Yeah, so that's the most important things that I could find that they need to change in this regards to, like, the tint is great, the CR is great, I love the color, and the Android modes, you know, regards to changing the actual brightness. Right now I have it set into step mode, so it gives me easier base for testing the different outputs and runtime. And regards to the tint, it's really good. The warm white is really nice high CRI. Same thing with the cool white side of the tint. I like that. So there's not many changes I'd like to see them do, other than lighten the lens frosting, add the logo on both sides or on one side. They can add holes for a lanyard, which we may do that yet. If it's not too much of an extra cost, we can do that. The LED light thing. And another thing I like to see them do, like around here, they have a groove where you can put a large O-ring in. I like to see them actually put a groove on the top edge the same way all the way around, so that basically you snap an O-ring on, so when it falls over, it's not, you know, banging, it'll just hit the rubber O-ring, so it gives a bit of protection, so it doesn't scratch up the anodizing, things like that. But overall, it's the sample is great. It's just a few minor changes to this thing before it's ready to go into production, and I think everybody will be happy. And again, the runtime is the big important thing with these, and the CRI is having lanterns. Because most of these lanterns I've swapped LEDs into, and none of them are really high CRI. The only thing that's actually high CRI is probably the gas lanterns over here, which are probably closer to, you know, sunlight, color rendering. But the rest of it is using regular LEDs and so on. And even though I've modified them with warm white and neutral white LEDs, they're much better than what they came with for regards to color rendering. So right now I've reduced the actual 7135s. Is that actually recording? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just checking to see the recordings. I thought the thing turned off. But anyhow, yeah, I've actually reduced the actual chips, the soldered areas inside here, to 5 chips per ramp side for the warm white, just to reduce the actual the amp draw and increase the runtime. And I didn't notice a big difference, a little bit, maybe 100 lumens or 80 lumens or something like that off the end. Oh, by the way, for those that was asking in regards to if it works with protected cells, it fits quite well. I use the EVVA 35 milliamp hour 18650s that I got from Mountain Electronics, and these are much longer than all the other ones I have, and they fit perfectly. As long as they can go below the actual lip of there, they have no problem. The only other issue too is the fact that I think you need to put more anodizing in the threads. Is the fact that even the first few threads you thread in, it powers up. It doesn't lock out by loosening the threads like the Q8. When I turn it, it locks out quite easily. So I think it's probably just needs a bit more anodizing in the threads, maybe because it's just a sample, they didn't do the coating heavy enough. But it'd be nice to have a mechanical lockout along with the built-in lockout that the Toy Keeper made with the Anduril. Yeah. So other than that, yeah, I really like the actual design of the lantern, and just add the little O-ring, a few changes, things like that. Yeah. So we'll probably soon, if anybody else have any questions on that, feel free to ask on the BLF forum thing. I'm probably going to do more videos. I've been, like I said, been waiting for a sunny day to do further testing with the solar charging. But as of right now, I'm happy with the charging system. It seems to work really well. The TB5100 is a great chip. It has a good regulation. It can run on various voltages. Even my weakest solar charger was only 7 watts. And it managed to charge, still charge this thing when it was only producing something like 140 milliamps anyway, 0.14 amps into the thing. And it was still showing red charging. And I left it that way for a while, and it did increase the voltage of the cells, so it actually took a little bit of charge even at the low amperage. So it does have a good regulation of that. It doesn't shut off when it reaches a certain low point, which is great. So it still accepts a trickle charge on a cloudy day with a small charger. And the bigger chargers will obviously charge it a lot faster. So yeah, in regards to runtimes, so far I've tested it with the Samsung 20Rs that I have here. I just want to see what because I've tested these at 2000 milliamp hour. And on maximum mode, it actually did pretty good. It ran for, I think it was like 7 hours, 7.5 hours on maximum mode with a 2000 milliamp hour. So with the 35s and a couple of chips reduced, the thing it'd be good for an entire weekend camping. You know, if you're using it say 4 or 5 hours a night, it'd probably last you a week without having to recharge the unit. So basically, you know, if you have a solar panel, you just throw the solar panel on for a few hours during the day, and you better use this thing continuously off grid without having to bring it home to charge it up, as long as you have some kind of a charging source. So it's runtime, whereas I've had lanterns that have like D batteries, like this thing right here has 8 D size batteries, and I've modified it using a 40 watt AC light bulb inside. I've changed the circuitry so it actually runs on the actual power that's on 12 volt right here. And while it's close to 40 watts, this is definitely brighter, the LT1. This thing will drain a set of D batteries, you know, in a few hours, so it gets really expensive. And the thing is, the 8 D batteries in that weighs more than all three of these other lanterns put together. So it's, you know, just still a weight savings using 18650s in these things. And again, it's the runtime. That's what I like about this runtime and high CRI. It has all the things that most lanterns I've seen from the factories never have, but they would have to modify them anyway. So yeah, so a few changes. Like I said, the BLF logo, possibly let the paracord lantern thing, shorten the lens a little bit, reduce the actual frosting, change the actual LEDs to the warmer color, and add an O-ring notch around here. And basically, Toy Keeper is doing some tweaking with the firmware to add something on the ramp, because that's the one thing I did notice when it was ramping. There was no blink at the ends of the ramp, which would be great to have that. So when it reaches the full ramp top, blink once, and do the same thing with the tint shift ramp. Have it blink when it reaches the full end of the tint shift, because when you actually hold it, you know, in right now it's on a step mode, but if you do the tint thing right now, it's changing, and it doesn't let you know when it reaches its limit. It just stops there and stays on, right? So a little flash or blink on that would be great. The other thing in regards to the step mode, I'd like to see added, we discussed it already, is the lowest mode itself. It's actually needs, it should be an added step mode down, so it's probably closer to what the, I don't know if you can see the difference. This one has like a moonlight mode, basically 2 moonlight modes. That's really low. So it could use a lowest mode on a step mode. While it's ramping, it does go lower. I did notice that. But regards to the actual moonlight, and also there's a bunch of other hidden modes as well, like the candle, the storm lightning, the bike flasher. It has battery check, which is the plus the flashing modes, and you know, there's a whole bunch of different ones. There's momentary mode. So yeah, the Android software is great. There's just so much other stuff. You get a beacon, you get sunset, but temperature check, and so on, right? So just a bit of tweaking that she's doing with this, which will be great. It'll improve that, and it'll be for the lantern version of it anyway. But yeah, but as for the sample itself, it gets my approval, no doubt. Again, just those few little changes, and I think it'll be ready for production. So I'm going to send the changes to Barry, list them off, and then discuss it with the group and see what we can do. And if there's anybody else in the team chat want to talk about anything else you'd like to see maybe altered. The driver itself is perfect. Actually did a great job on that. And right now I have it left on the 1.5 amp with the solar jumper across. I didn't do the test with the 0.75 because I didn't really need to. So it seems like 1.5 is fine. It's still a separate charge from a low powered solar panel, so it'll work great for that. Yeah. Yeah, there's just, and also the threads, thing like that. But yeah, other than that, that's the LT1 sample, and I like how it's turning out. So let's hope we can get this thing into production soon, because we're getting into the camping season, and if we can get these things ready to roll by June month, and then especially for next year when the power outages come, these things will be great. And there you go. Good night, folks.